G'day mate, 40 here. So Dennis Dale made a strong critique of me the other night. He said I was shameless. And even though we'd both admit that's not 100% true, I like to think that there's some truth in it. Like, I have a lot less shame than I did 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25 years ago. And it's one of the good things about growing older, right? That you tend to feel less shame. That's one of the benefits of psychotherapy and 12-step programs and having friends. I remember when I fell in love with reading books about age 7 or 8. One of the great things about reading books and finding out about other people was like, oh yeah, they went through something that I did. Now I feel less alone and less ashamed. And then when I discovered popular music about age 13, right, just so happened that the music, the songs, the air supply, the ABBA, the John Denver, the top 40 in 1979, 1980, pretty much mirrored what was going on inside of me. Like, these songs articulated what I was feeling. Most of the time felt way too awkward to share with anyone. Okay, let's catch this green light. So the opposite of this is when you've got this very closely held concern, something that completely captivates your attention and your heart, and it's the number one thing sitting on you. And you try to share it with someone who you thought you were close to, and they show no interest or they want to avoid the topic. Right, when you get something complicated and shameful going on in your life and try to share it with the people close to you and they don't want to hear it, right? That's kind of the opposite of the experience of, I don't know, is it empathy or feeling understood when you get a great book or great song, great poem that speaks to what you're going through. One of the great things about psychotherapy was being able to share anything on my mind. And it's such a different experience, overwhelmingly, from talking to a friend, because it's pretty rare that you can talk to a friend for longer than 20 seconds without checking in to see if they're listening, see if they're still with you. And I don't know about you, but in my normal chinwags with friends, it's rare that I can speak uninterrupted for 60 seconds. Like, the normal is give and take, back and forth. And in therapy, you can share what's most holding your attention and your fear and your concern and your worry. You can just share that in all its depth and gory. Then there's the fantastic experience of having mates, right? You can talk to your mates about things that you're ashamed of or frightened of. They can share their own experience, or they can buck you up. I don't know. I just feel much more strong and able to wrestle with the challenges that life has for me when I'm connected with other people, like really bonded. Like feeling like they're in my corner, I'm in theirs, that we're on the same page, that we're creating a shared reality, that we're building the same rhythm. We have similar commitments, we have a similar ethic. And one thing I often found in 12-step programs is that something that was incredibly shameful for me, someone else would share about it and laugh. It's like, what a relief. I didn't even have to articulate it the first time I stepped into a room for sex addiction. Like, I could benefit from everyone there. I had something to share that I could resonate with and benefit from, heal from, feel more at ease with myself. And it immediately even started having an effect on my fantasies. I remember one woman shared that she was recovering from sex addiction now. The only person that she would masturbate to was God. So I'm not a big fan of wanking, but if you're going to wank, like just wanking to an all-powerful, all moral, all holy, all transcendent creator of the universe who cares about you and wants what's best for you, right? That's a pretty good person to wank to if you must indulge in that filthy vice. And here's the definition that I like with regard to shame versus guilt, right? Shame, you feel bad about who you are, and guilt is when you feel bad about what you've done. So I don't see any benefit from feeling shame under that definition. Like feeling ashamed of who you are, how does that benefit you? Like if you're addicted to porn and you're whacking off 3 times a day for like 5 hours a day, I don't see how you're improved by self-loathing, by hating yourself or becoming disgusted with yourself. Rather, I think you'd be improved by taking the attitude, okay, this isn't really adaptive to my best interests. Surely there's a better way of getting my needs met. And if you can join some sort of support group or 12-step program where people have similar problems and people are getting recovery from them, then that's got to be a way of just letting go of a load on your shoulders, letting go of a burden, letting go of things pulling you down, tightening and compressing you, distorting you, not just your psyche but your musculature, your face, your back, your shoulders, your breathing, how you move and speak and think and emote, letting go of the shame. So I like to think of this channel as the shame-free zone, right? So you may have your prejudices and you may hate outgroups. You shouldn't feel ashamed of hating outgroups. Now, if you publicly announce that you hate outgroups, right, that'll probably be maladaptive, right? That's not in your best interest. No judgments, no standards. Okay. Well, there's a time and a place for judgment, and there's a time and a place for standards, and not every conversation is enhanced by judgment. So, for example, interviews. Right? If you pronounce moral judgments in an interview, it tightens up the other party and makes the interview more confrontational. They're less likely to share with you. You get an inferior interview, an inferior product. So, pronouncing moral judgments on people, I guess there's a time and a place. It's usually going to be maladaptive because people usually get resentful. So there's a great Christian thinker about the 12th century who perhaps said it best. He said, at all times preach the gospel and occasionally use words. Make sure you maintain a judgment-free zone when you interview RFK Jr. That's why I need Ricardo, man. He puts his fingers on my BS. He points out where I'm being hypocritical, blind, where I'm trying to elide over things that are awkward. So there is a confrontational element to some of my interviews. There is a moral judgment to some of my interviews. Generally speaking, it doesn't help. Occasionally it's what's needed, but certainly not at the beginning. You want to get people nice and comfy and cozy. Like, have a simultaneous sip of some big blueberry smoothie. And hey, Ricardo, do you still have that stream online with Persian drums, cutting edge critiques of me? Or do you remember what they were? But in a competitive, frequently hectic, often crime-ridden, disaster-prone world, right? The most adaptive mechanisms for most people. Oh, I have it saved on my hard drive. Okay, yeah. So that might be fun. My contact But yeah, in a competitive, hectic, crime-ridden, conflict-ridden world, usually the best, most adaptive strategy is to have an in-group that you're closely bonded with. And the more closely you bond with your in-group, the more likely you will feel negative feelings about out-groups. And you should, in the safety of your in-group, be able to express your bigoted sentiments, or your fearful sentiments, or your derisive sentiments, or your bewildered sentiments about out-groups, without that coming back to bite you in the tuchus. Right? It's one thing to do it in the safety of, particularly in Orthodox synagogue on the Sabbath, no one's carrying a recording device. Am I going to be able to make it? Yeah, that's the good thing about being an Orthodox Jew, is that people are not usually recording your conversations on the Sabbath or on a Jewish holiday. Okay, looks like we made it. In the safety of Beverly Hills. Doesn't look like there's going to be a pogrom today. But why do we even bother to meet on this channel? Am I going to watch Sound of Freedom? It's QAnon adjacent. I guess I should. Honestly, it never occurred to me to watch it. I was just watching, I subscribed to the Patreon from Decoding the Gurus. They're talking about this mammoth cross-country study on disinformation and various steps to counter disinformation. So that's where my head was at this morning. And I think, there's no point sharing any of this on my stream. Nobody's going to want to hear about the most responsible and effective ways of countering COVID disinformation on my stream. But yeah, that's kind of cool that independent. Yeah, last night was a good show. Honestly, I didn't do enough prep. I didn't have my timestamps lined up correctly. Yeah, it felt good to have you on the show, bro, and talk to you for an hour. So yeah, honestly, I didn't do enough prep. Didn't have my timestamps lined up. There were some awkward bits, but there was also some good material. So yeah, in general, the more prep, the better the show. And I think it could do with a part 2 and a part 3. I've enjoyed much of JF's critique of the race riots in France. So Jean-Francois has a French identity, and he can understand what's going on in France, I think, better than us Anglos. And he has a lot of good things to say about France. And so for all my criticisms of JF, I also recognize that he's a serious thinker, he's a serious intellectual, very smart guy, puts out a very polished professional product. He's very good with his audio settings, and is a serious intellectual. Now, I think he's gone down the rabbit hole with some conspiracy theories, but I think he's pretty good on France. Just can only speak about the 20 minutes or so that I've listened to his analysis. So probably do a part 2, decoding Jean-Francois today, mainly as an excuse to listen to his commentary on the French race riots and how that fits into the French comfort with revolution. So from an Australian, English, American, Anglo perspective, like revolution is something to be afraid of. It's something terrible. But for the French, apparently, according to JF, this sentiment of off with the heads of the elites that stormed the Bastille is very woven into their national psyche. So I might want to dig deeper, perhaps another decoding